Hi everyone, I'm Jackie Leventhal and I'm the Chief Brand and Content Officer here at 6th and I. Whether you're here with us in person or watching virtually from home, thank you for being with us tonight. For anyone who's here for the first time, 6th and I is a nonprofit center for arts, entertainment, ideas, and Jewish life, and by attending our programs, you help fuel our mission to inspire more meaningful and fulfilling lives, so thank you for that. Gretchen Rubin's work aligns especially well with our mission, and it's a treat to get to welcome her back to 6th and I. With this event, Gretchen is officially inducted into our 5-Timers Club. That is a small group of authors, thought leaders, and entertainers who have graciously returned to our stage time and again to share their wisdom and talents. Gretchen has spoken here about happier at home, better than before, and outer order, inner calm, just a few of her best-selling books about happiness and human nature. Her last visit was for a live taping of her podcast, which she co-hosts with her sister Elizabeth, who lovingly calls Gretchen a, quote, happiness bully. Those of us with sisters get that dynamic. Across those events, we experienced Gretchen's gift for conveying complex ideas with humor and clarity in service to helping people become happier, healthier, more productive, and more creative. That aim is also at the heart of her new book, Secrets of Adulthood. Drawing from Gretchen's long studies of happiness and from challenges she's faced, she offers aphorisms, or simple truths for the complexities of life. She helps us see the forest from the trees across the arenas of life that make it challenging and also worth living, like friendships, relationships, work, adventure, learning, and more. One that stuck with me is about what we'll remember and keeping things in perspective, which says, one day, now will be a long time ago. When I think about the arc of Gretchen's career, which started in law, she actually clerked for Supreme Court Justice Sandra Day O'Connor, and then going on to the ultimate marker of success, being an answer on Jeopardy. It's her secrets for navigating life that we definitely want. Tonight, Gretchen Rubin will be in conversation with Meghan Keane, the founder and managing producer for the NPR podcast Life Kit, one of my personal favorites, which offers practical and approachable advice about everything from personal finance and health to relationships, parenting, and more. Meghan is the author of Party of One, about how to live a fulfilling life, whether you're partnered or not, and we have autographed copies for sale. Later in the program, we look forward to hearing your questions, and you'll be invited to line up at microphones at that time. Thank you again to everyone here and at home for joining us. Please help me give Gretchen Rubin and Meghan Keane a warm welcome to 6th and I.
Oh my gosh, this is so exciting. How is everybody? Thank you for being here. I'm Meghan, and I think you know this lovely lady. This is Gretchen Rubin.
Yes.
Gretchen, take it all in.
I'm so happy to be back.
Yes, the 5-Timers Club, very elite.
I know, I love 6th and I. I did not know that I was part of this elite group. I'm thrilled.
Well, today, this book, Secrets of Adulthood, comes out today. So this is a very exciting day. Publication day is a big day for authors. This is your 10th book, which I think people should really take in. That is a big deal. How are you just feeling in general about having your 10th book out in the world?
I'm excited. It's fun. It's fun. It's funny, though, because today is April 1st, which is like arguably an inauspicious day. And I said to my editor, it's kind of an inauspicious day for a book. And she said, no, because April Fool's Day. And your book is to help people be less foolish. Like, okay. And then today I was walking by the National Portrait Gallery. So I went in, I just ran in. And one of the first portraits I saw was Benjamin Franklin, who is kind of a patron saint of people who write aphorisms and who write self-help. So I was like, okay, that's good. I have good signs.
You do, absolutely. So as you were saying, this book, Secrets of Adulthood, it's a book of aphorisms, really, right? And aphorisms are, just these short kind of sentences that kind of unlock a wisdom about life. And I love them because they're a little bit like poetry. What do you love so much about aphorisms? Because you've spent years collecting them, writing them. What do you love about them, and why did you want to put them all in one book?
Well, because they're distilled, they have more power in the mind, and because you have to choose every word so carefully, they're really creatively exciting. It's like trying to write a haiku or a limerick or, a 30-minute sitcom. It's like the constraint of it, it really I think unlocks creativity. And then because they're short, it's easier to debate them. Like,
Oh, yeah.
do I agree? Do I disagree? Like one of them is, if you don't like a pair of pants, don't pay to get them hemmed. It's like, okay, that's literally true. It's also metaphorically true, but maybe you disagree with it. A friend of mine was like, no, I think you absolutely should spend money, spend a little bit because maybe you'll gain a whole pair of pants. And I was like, we can agree to disagree. It never works out for me.
I learned to sew so I could hem my own
Okay,
pants.
there you go. That's right.
So I don't want to pay for it.
Hem your own pants.
Yeah, there you go.
Okay.
Exactly.
Like we're moving it forward. But I do feel that sometimes trying to come up with exactly the right way to say it, or in some kind of a lot of times aphorisms will have a paradox or something surprising in them to try to help them land harder in the mind.
There is this moment when you meet an aphorism where you either have to agree or disagree. Can you talk about what that feeling is like and how people can, when they are looking at an aphorism, decide if it's right for them to incorporate in their own lives?
Yeah, I think you just have to decide what do you make of it? I mean, and I think that's why reading them is so intellectually satisfying, because it does prompt you to have more clarity in your own thinking. Like something that for me, which took months and months and months to try to understand what I even thought, and then to try to express it succinctly, was accept ourselves and also expect more from ourselves. To me, this is like the central challenge of our lives and kind of the secret to happiness. But somebody might disagree, and it's sort of like, what does it even mean? And so for me, that's what's really valuable about it, is you can really evaluate it, because you can grasp it at one time. Because I could go on and on about that for pages. And believe me, I was trained in law. I could easily do that.
Well, people don't, I think, realize sometimes that it is actually much more challenging to write in a short way than in a long way.
Oh, no, it's just, what's that famous story? Like, I'm sorry I wrote you such a long letter, I didn't have time to write a short one.
Right, yeah.
It is very much that. And it's just like getting it down and down and down. Yeah.
Do you have kind of a recipe of what makes a good aphorism? Like one part this, one part that?
No. No. But no, but when you read, I love Secrets of Adulthood. I also love Proverbs, ancient Proverbs. I have thousands of Proverbs. On the Happier podcast, we often ask for Proverbs of the professions, which is like, what are the Proverbs of poker players? And which is like, if you can't spot the fish at the table, you're the fish. Yep. Or skiers, so I really love that kind of thing. I really love the kind of short, distilled wisdom. Yeah, but I don't know. I don't have a formula for it, no.
For me, it's obviously wisdom, one part wisdom, that's helpful, right? One part wisdom, one part elegance, I would say.
Yes.
One part wit helps, not optional. Maybe that's the Maldon salt that goes on top. And then one part surprising.
Yes.
I feel like when I was reading this book, I would be like, oh, I never thought about it that way. I feel like surprise can help an aphorism. And it also opens up discussion for, like you're saying, like a debate, rather than an idea that shuts down conversation, right?
Well, it's funny, now that the book is out in the world, a couple people have mentioned to me something that never occurred to me, which is that you could add when you're having dinner with people, you could just open it up and pick one and then talk about it.
Yeah.
I was like, that would be amazing. But it had never occurred to me that people could do it that way. Yeah. I think it's fun.
So the Secrets of Adulthood, that phrase has been around in your life for a while now.
Yeah.
You write about the Secrets of Adulthood in one of your books, The Happiness Project, a fair amount throughout. And that came out in about 2009. So when you think about the Secrets of Adulthood that you started writing then, and the ones that are here today, how are they alike? How are they disalike? How are they in conversation with each other?
Oh, they're just evolving.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think that I'm just adding. Anytime I get a bit of wisdom, I hang on to it with both hands. I write that thing down right away. So a lot of these are ones that I've been gaining along the way. Yeah. But I also have a secret trove of bleak aphorisms.
I've been hearing about this, and you've been talking about this, and
No,
I thought, I
funny,
wanted them in here.
No, it's funny because of the negativity bias. Everybody's like, well, I want to know the bleak aphorisms. So I'm like, so maybe I'll put out a collection of those too.
Well, I'll tell you why I think people are interested in them. Because when you are going through something hard, you want another person to reach out and say, yeah, you're right, it's hard. And I feel like a bleak aphorism
these are judgy.
These are judgy.
I think it's a little bit more like that.
I'm still
it's
into
not like
that.
they're dark about they're dealing with difficult things, because some of these deal with difficult things. It's more like this is a little bit like of a harsher tone.
Okay. I was thinking it'd be like your Pia Machodron, like when things fall apart kind of thing, but this sounds a little bit more judgy than like a Buddhist monks.
No, but I think I may do something with them because people do seem interested.
Okay. Well, while we wait for that to come out, we'll talk about some of the ones in here. So we'll do kind of a bit of a lightning-ish round, how about, of some of my personal favorite aphorisms. And I should
this
say,
is so fun for me to know because, of course, I love all of them. But what's interesting is to know what resonates with other people. And it might be that different ones would resonate with different people, just depending. Here's a proverb: when the student is ready, the teacher appears. And I think sometimes you just happen to put out an idea when somebody's ready to hear it.
Yeah, completely.
But there are some that seem to be coming up more often as I'm talking to people.
And I should also mention, this book is great. You can sit down and read in one sitting. I did that. But you can also, it's divided into different sections. So there's things about procrastination, love, relationships, work, getting things done. And you can just pick it up, fold to a chapter and say, I just got some great wisdom there, and keep your day moving, right? So, all right, so some of these are the ones that really kind of poked out to me. And this is something I've heard you say a lot over the years and in your work, but I think it's so good, which is what we do every day matters more than what we do once in a while.
So that's interesting to me because I said that, and to me, that seems so obvious. I wouldn't have even thought of that as like a secret of adulthood. But so many people would repeat it back to me that I realized, wow, this is telling me that this is something that's very important for people to keep in mind. And it's like if you go for a 20-minute walk every day, that matters more than if you go for a 10-mile run once every 6 months. But it's interesting to me. Again, this is a good example of how I don't always know what's going to resonate with people.
Yeah, it reminded me of something a colleague told me once, which is writers write. And I was like, oh yeah, you can't just, people love to be like, I'm a writer, and they just like drinking about it. You know what I mean? Or discussing writing.
Yeah.
That's a phrase I'm stealing from David Rakoff.
Okay, yeah.
But it is a reminder like, oh, you get to be a writer if you write.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, wait, how many people here know about the 4 tendencies?
Yes, I was about to actually get to that. Okay.
So for you, I'll say as an upholder, that's a very upholdery thing to think.
Upholders checking in up here.
And so, but then the other 3 tendencies are like, not so much. So, yeah.
Totally. All right, this is for the ruminators in the room then. That's not a 4 tendency. Repeatedly rehearsing disaster doesn't protect us from it. Why do you have to get in my brain like that?
Right. Well, see, that is my sister. My sister Elizabeth is one of these people who superstitiously believes that the more you think about something, you'll kind of prevent it. That there's some kind of magic about worrying that means that something won't happen. So she almost feels like there's a duty to worry because if she doesn't worry, it's going to be more likely. Obviously she knows rationally that that's not true, and yet she still gets caught up in that.
Yeah, what I've learned in my own research about rumination is that we do think, I'm like Elizabeth, I think if I could just sit here for like 10 more minutes, I could really crack it. And 10 minutes becomes 30, becomes an hour. And what research shows is that you actually want to find a mental off-ramp. You want to be like, you want a distraction. You want to do something different. You want to get yourself out of your head, because why questions are so, they fuel the fire. And they're not actually taking you anywhere. You actually need a what question. What can I do right now? What can I get involved with to get me out of that? All right, so this one I also feel like is really emblematic of your work, is don't expect to be motivated by motivation.
Yes. I believe that with like so much fervor. Yes, because people, I really don't like the word motivation generally because it confuses 2 things. Motivation meaning the desire to reach an outcome, and then also the willingness to take action toward that outcome. I feel like motivation kind of combines those two ideas, whereas in fact someone can be deeply, deeply desirous of reaching an aim, but not be doing anything to move toward that aim.
Yeah.
And so I think you just can't expect to be motivated by motivation, because what a lot of people do is they'll whip themselves into a frenzy of desire, thinking like, oh, if I just want it badly enough, I'll do it. But it doesn't work. So don't expect to be motivated by motivation.
What's a good alternative to that, to actually get things done that you want to get done?
Well, then we have to talk about the tendencies.
Let's talk
because,
about
yeah, because, well, should I explain them
Please,
briefly?
yeah. So I'm sure a lot of you are here because you know about the 4 tendencies. It's personally one of my favorite frameworks. I'm an upholder. That's no shocker to anyone in my life. But yes, please.
This is very unusual to have two. That's statistically rare that you get two upholders together. Yeah.
Look at us. Yes, please. If you want to give a quick framework.
Okay, this is a side note, but it's very relevant to this. Okay, so the 4 tendencies is a personality framework that divides people into 4 categories: upholders, like us, questioners, obligers, and rebels. And what it looks at is how you respond to expectations, whether you meet or resist outer and inner expectations. So we all face 2 kinds of expectations: outer expectations like a work deadline, and inner expectations like your own desire to get back into meditation. So depending on whether you meet or resist that outer or inner expectation, that's what makes you the upholder, the questioner, the obliger, or rebel. So I'll go through and explain them very quickly, and then I'll have people raise their hands because it'll be really fun. But and you can take a quiz if you go to GretchenRubin.com/quiz. You can get a quiz, take a quiz, get a report. But most people know what they are just from this brief description. We could do Game of Thrones. I could do The Office. I could do Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul. These are very obvious once you know what to look for. Okay, so upholders are people who readily meet both outer and inner expectations. They meet the work deadline. They keep the New Year's resolution without much fuss. They want to know what other people expect from them, but their expectations for themselves are just as important. They tend to love to-do lists, calendars, schedule. They're very focused on self-execution. They can be
Everyone
rigid.
is looking at each other.
Yeah. They can be very rigid, right?
Who is rigid here?
Okay, yeah. I'm just saying I wear it pride.
Me too. No, same.
So their motto is discipline is my freedom.
Yes.
Then there are questioners.
That's
Questioners question all expectations. They'll do it if they think it makes sense. So they need reasons, justifications, rationale. They tend to love to customize. They love to monitor. They are turning everything into an inner expectation. If it makes sense to them, they'll do it no problem. If it fails their belief in what's justified, they will push back. So, and they can often fall into analysis paralysis where they can't move forward because they don't have perfect information. So their motto is, I'll comply if you convince me why. Then there are obligers. Now, obliger is the biggest tendency. This is the one that has the most people in it. It's the biggest tendency for both men and women. Obligers readily meet outer expectations, but they struggle to meet inner expectations. So these are the people who say, why can I keep my promises to other people, but I can't keep my promises to myself? I can't put myself first. I can't take time for self-care. This is because they readily meet outer expectations, but they struggle to meet inner expectations. Spoiler alert, the answer for obligers is to give themselves outer accountability, even for an inner expectation. If you want to read more, join a book group.
Yeah.
If you want to exercise more, work out with a trainer, work out with a friend who's going to be annoyed if you don't show up, raise money for a charity. There's a lot of ways to create accountability if you know that's what you need. So they make great team members, great leaders, great friends, great family members. I've had employers tell me that they want to screen for obligers. They only want to hire obligers.
I don't
answer that. And so it's really the obligers that feel the weight of it because they're like, why can't I keep my promises to myself? Because you need the accountability buddy. So their motto is, you can count on me, and I'm counting on you to count on me. And then finally, rebels. Rebels resist all expectations, outer and inner alike. They want to do what they want to do in their own way, in their own time. They can do anything they want to do. They can do anything they choose to do. But if you ask or tell them to do something, they're very likely to resist. And typically, they don't tell themselves what to do. Like, they don't sign up for that 10 a.m. spin class on Sunday because they think, I don't know what I'm going to feel like doing this weekend, and just the fact that somebody's expecting me to show up is going to be annoying. So their motto is, you can't make me, and neither can I. And if you're thinking, I question the validity of this framework, you are probably a questioner.
There we go. Do we want to take a quick poll?
Okay, so upholders. Who's an upholder? Readily meets outer and inner expectations. This is a lot. Okay.
This makes sense.
Questioners question all expectations.
That's nice.
Okay,
yeah.
Obligers readily meet outer, struggle to meet inner. That's the biggest group. And rebels often.
Yeah.
Rebels often sit in the front or last row.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, that's funny.
So this is typical. Obligers the biggest. I did and the questioners are being like, well, you say you did a sample, but the people who take your quiz, that's subject to the selection bias. Well, questioners, I know that, so I paid for a representative survey. Obliger is biggest, next questioner, rebel is smallest, upholder only slightly smaller. Upholders and rebels are kind of the more fringe tendencies. I remember telling my husband, I'm like part of this kind of fringe extreme personality type. And he was like, oh, you think? He was not surprised. Yeah. He's a questioner, by the way.
So what I love about the 4 tendencies is it does get to this idea of don't expect to be motivated by motivation, because if you know what you are, you can use that to your advantage to actually be motivated.
So if you're like, how is it that I need to get something done? You're like, well, if you're an obliger, you need accountability. If you're a questioner, you need to think about, you really need to understand why this you have decided is the best and most efficient and right way for you to move forward in this way. For an upholder, you put it on the calendar, you put it on the to-do list, it'll get done. And the rebel, it's just like, whatever you want.
Yeah.
It's what you want. Is this your identity? Do you identify as a writer? Because a writer's right. What does a writer do? A writer writes.
Writer writes.
Or it's like, you think I can't do it? You think I can't write a novel in 1 year? Watch me. You think I can't run the marathon this year? I'll do it. There's all kinds of ways to get yourself to do something, but motivation
on its own, it's icky. It's not very helpful.
It's just confusing.
Especially if you're like, I know I should wake up early, but you're just like, well, why? Like, what do you want to do that makes you feel good?
Can I tell you my 2 favorite examples? These are 2 of the most imaginative examples from the 4 tendencies for accountability. Okay, so these were 2 people who lived by themselves who needed to get up early. And they tried to outfox themselves by putting the alarm across and it just didn't work because they needed outer accountability. So what do you do? What is the solution? You live by yourself. You can't trick yourself with the jumping alarm clock or whatever.
Yeah.
So one person had a dog that slept next to his bed. And so he changed the alarm on his phone to say, Ginger, do you want to go for a walk?
Oh, my
Ginger,
God.
do you want to go for a walk? So Ginger would jump up on his chest, lick his face, start wagging her tail. Yes, I do. And there's no sleeping through that. And then the other woman, she had as another thing that she wanted to do, she wanted to read the Bible with her mother. And so every morning her mother would call and they would read the Bible together and pray for each other as they started the day. And so, of course, she had to get up because she knew her mother was going to be calling and expecting her to be ready for a serious conversation. And so I was like, these are such great solutions.
People are creative.
So, but just thinking I'm really motivated to be on time. I'm really motivated to get up on time. It's not going to change anything.
Yeah. So another one that I really love, because I think it gets to a theory I have about self-help.
Ooh, I love the theory.
We can change our lives without changing ourselves.
Yes. Yeah.
My quick theory is that and I'm running a self-help podcast. I know this sounds like maybe I'm putting myself out of a job. I think we're all overthinking self-help. I think it's actually so much simpler than we all realize, which is have good relationships, reach out to friends, move your body, drink some water. And if you're tired, take care of that. And then you can hack your way there. That's all good, but the smaller changes, I think, ladder up to ultimately the bigger changes that we're looking for.
But people don't make those smaller changes.
I know. But maybe if they think about their own tendency, they would, right?
I hope so. I hope so.
Well, so talk to me about why you like this aphorism, why you wrote it. We can change our lives without changing ourselves.
No, because I think sometimes people are like, well, I want to become a runner. And it's I remember talking to somebody, a New York Times reporter, and she's like, I want to become the kind of person who wants to get up and go for a big run every morning. And I was like,
Is that you?
I'm like, that's not you,
Yeah.
right? Like you're not that kind of person, and you're not going to become that kind of person. If that's your aim, that feels very poignant to me. But if what you want to do is get up and go for a run every day, well, that's possible.
Yeah.
You can become the kind of person who does it, and you can become the kind of person who has the benefit of it. But you don't have to change the kind of person that you are.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
The way I was thinking about this too is like just because like let's say I started walking more a few years ago when I was writing my book, because I was realizing I was more sedentary than I thought I was, even living in Washington, D.C., very walkable area. And I thought, I'm very active, and then I was like, but I'm actually not that active.
Right.
So I was like, I'm gonna go on walks. I'm gonna change my life without changing myself.
Right. Yes. Right.
And it's just to be like, I'm just incorporating a new habit. It didn't like necessarily change my identity,
Right.
but it changed my life because
Yes.
I get to see the beautiful trees in Rock Creek Park
Right.
every morning,
Right.
all this stuff. So
Right.
I feel like there's just like little things that can, if you just twist them just a little bit, like little knobs you can change on a dial almost, then it influence your life in a big way.
Well, and I think that that's important, because I think sometimes people think that like I have to have this big change and then my behavior will change. And it's like, well, you can change your behavior, which is much easier. It's much easier to change our conscious thoughts and actions than it is to change our nature.
Yeah, completely. Yeah. I'm totally on board with that. And then this last one I wanted to focus on is one that you include, Nebraska's tourist slogan.
Oh, yeah.
Would you like to do the honors?
Okay. I can't remember. I can remember the slogan, but I can't remember what the aphorism is exactly.
Sure, it's just honest Nebraska. Honestly, it's not for everyone.
Yeah.
And
yeah, that's their tourist slogan.
What a great
Does
thing to
anybody
say.
here see the advertisement that's for Oslo?
Yes.
Is it even a city? Have you seen this? Yes. It's so brilliant. Go home and watch it, because it's a guy who's like, is it even a city? It's like you can walk from one side to the other in half an hour. You can't do that in Paris. Like, he goes on and on describing this beautiful, idyllic city, like, in despair. He wants to move to, anyway, yes. So honesty, and a sense of humor.
I mean, honestly, I like that too, because it's so disarming for, like, if you're like ever concerned about what someone thinks about you, maybe someone at work is giving you trouble, or you're just like, man, I really am not like connecting with this person. You're just like, honestly, I'm not for everybody.
Yeah.
Immediately, problem solved.
Yeah.
And you can move on with your day, which is great.
Well, and another aphorism, and I can't remember if I put this in the book or not, is a strong voice repels as well as attracts.
Yes.
I remind myself of that because, surprisingly, I'm not to everyone's taste. And, but I'm like, okay, it's not for everyone.
Yeah.
Like Nebraska.
Yeah, like Nebraska.
Honestly,
Nebraska.
it's not for everyone.
I know you wrote this book in part as something to pass down to your daughters, right? Of the wisdom that you've acquired over your lifetime. Partly you say because you don't want them to maybe, make the same mistakes you had, and just like get some shortcuts to some advice. But I want to talk about like what it means to relearn lessons. Do you feel like it's just inherently part of the process, or can you actually get the lesson, be like, got it, and keep it moving and avoid that? I feel like inherently you do have to relearn a lot of lessons.
I think you have to relearn a lot of lessons. I don't know. At least I need to relearn a lot of lessons. But I think you do get to the point that where you can pause and repeat something to yourself.
Yeah.
Like, working is one of the most dangerous forms of procrastination. I relearn that and remind myself of that all the time. But now I remember to remind myself of it.
Yeah. I mean, it's also frustrating when you're the person who's giving the advice too, because, we both happen to know a lot about things about happiness, right? And me about just like general broad life stuff with Life Kit. And it can be frustrating when you see someone in your life can't relearn that lesson.
No, but I mean, this is why Elizabeth calls me a happiness bully, because I sometimes am very like not polite about it. I'm just like,
the research
oh my gosh.
says,
I'm like, can I please give you a 10 bullet point plan, which I know would work. She's like, no, it's not. You've got to back off.
Yeah, I know. I've had to learn that too. When people, I'm like, clearly you have to learn this in your own time, and I'll be here when you're ready. It's kind of like when someone recommends, or you recommend a TV show to someone, or a movie, or a book, and you're like, you would love it, and they don't take your advice, and then like 10 months later, they'd be like, book I just read, it's so good. And I'm like, I told you about it. That's how the kind of approach I have to take with advice sometimes. I'm like, you will come to this in your own time, and I'll be here waiting.
Yeah.
And I'm sometimes the other person in that scenario too.
No,
So.
and I think it is this idea that when the student is ready, the teacher
Totally.
appears. I do think that there's the moment comes and then you're able to hear it. And I also think that sometimes like different metaphors resonate with people. Like, for example, when I wrote the Happiness Project, many people said, don't call it that. They thought it was a terrible title because they're like, nobody likes a project. That sounds like homework. And I was like, well, that's sounds actually really appealing to me, and that's how I thought of it in my own mind. So I was like, it's done, you know. But
And it's a bestseller, so
yeah,
there you go.
So haha. But
Yeah.
but one thing that doesn't appeal to me is the journey. Like this is a metaphor that resonates deeply with people because people often say to me, it's a journey, and I'm like, that doesn't resonate with me. But that's okay. Everybody, and so I think part of something like this is like, maybe there is a metaphor that works for one person, and even maybe at one time, and then another time it doesn't. Like I remember reading, because one of my favorite aphorists, one of my missions in life is to bring into repute this aphorist who nobody talks about anymore, Marie von Ibn Eschenbach, and she has these ones like, here's one: you can fall so fast you think you're flying.
That one cuts.
Right? I mean, you just think, like, I'm like, there's somebody who would read that and be like, oh my goodness, right?
Ooh, I love that. In the book, you also have just like little quick stories from other writers, like you were mentioning, and other aphorists that you love. And you talk about the writer James Agee, who writes a letter to a friend, and it's after he finds out he has this heart condition. His doctor is saying, "Hey, you really got to cut back on drinking."
And he's in his
smoking.
40s. He's young.
Yeah. And he writes this to his friend, and he says, "I'm depressed because whether I am to live a very short time or relatively longer time depends on whether or not I can learn to be the kind of person I am not and have always detested." And I'm really glad you put that in. And like, it's dark too, because you do mention he does die shortly after that.
He dies in a taxi on the way to the doctor's office.
Sad. I don't bring it up to bum everybody out. I bring it up because I think it brings up an interesting idea about when advice or growth is at conflict with your self-identity. How do you navigate that when you know that, like, that's a really, like, that in particular is like your health, it's very serious, obviously, but if you know that something you're hearing is you should, quote unquote, do, but it feels really in conflict with who you are, how do you navigate that?
Well, this ties back to what we were talking about before.
Totally.
Because you can change your life without changing yourself. But sometimes you really do have to grapple with an identity. And I remember talking to a friend of mine who wanted to cut, and I think I read about this in Better Than Before. She really wanted to cut back on her drinking. She didn't want to give up drinking, but she was just reaching the point where she's like, it's not that good for me, and then I don't work out the next day, I don't sleep well, like, I just need to cut back. But when I was talking to her, I realized it was very tied to her identity as Italian. Like, she was very proud of her Italian heritage, and she's like, to be Italian is to have hospitality, it's to fill everyone's glass, it's to say, let's have another round. And it was like, all in her mind tied to the sense of herself as this Italian who loved life. And I was like, Maria, you have to grapple with that identity. You have to find a way to be Italian and a lover of life, and also that it's not tied to the drinking the way that it is now.
Right.
And I said to her, Maria, you're so much fun, even if you're not drinking. And she said, I am so much fun. Because she is. She was super fun. But she had to kind of like think about how that identity had gotten in her way. And she had to really grapple with it. And I think for James Agee, he's like, I'm like this, I'm this
cool
writer.
writer,
I'm this cool writer. I'm drinking. I'm smoking. Like, this is my thing. And it's like, okay, but that's not good for you. So then you really have to think about that identity.
Yeah, sometimes those things are so intertwined with something else. And I think that's so right. It's just like to kind of shift it. And it's like, is it actually about the glass of wine at dinner, or is it about like the family and community?
Yes,
exactly.
Yes,
exactly.
Yeah, and it's like you can let go of, you can break those things apart.
Totally.
If you want.
By the way, what drives you and motivates you to give advice? Like, where does that come from? Because that is like the crux of your career.
Well, that's funny because I feel like I'm giving myself advice a lot.
Me-search.
Yeah, research is me-search, and I always write about what I need to learn. So I really feel like I'm giving myself advice, and then I'm kind of like just sharing with people what I learn. But then if I do feel like that there's something that could really benefit them, I really do want to tell them about it.
Yeah.
So that's where it comes from. Yeah.
I feel that too.
Yeah.
That's, I think, one of my bosses will joke, if it happens to an editor, it's news. And
Right.
so
Yeah.
that's how I feel like we get a lot of the ideas on Life Kit.
Yeah,
We're just
yeah,
like,
yeah.
this happened to me the other day in a meeting.
But don't you also feel like it's often clearer what other people should do than what you should do?
Yeah.
You know, and so.
I'm fine.
Right, yeah.
Yeah.
Or you're just, in your own mind, it's all very complicated, and you see somebody else, you're like, okay, this is not that complicated.
100%.
And so I think there is a little bit of that, you know, where people have this very, very thing, you know, like all these things are going on. I'm like, it sounds like you're only getting 4 hours of sleep a night. Like, I would start with that.
Yeah, exactly.
And then work from there, you know. But to them, they're like, well, you know, I think we get clouded in our own, you know, in our inner psychic landscape.
So yeah, on Life Kit on our show, we often talk about how the advice that we're giving is the stuff we wish was taught in high schools, that people missed in high schools. If there was a Gretchen Rubin syllabus for class, what would you like to be on it?
Ooh. Viktor Frankl, Man's Search for Meaning. Benjamin Franklin's autobiography.
Or even skills too. It doesn't. Have to, it can be skills too, or
skills too,
or
my
whatever.
Gosh. My mind is like, I need to prepare for this. I feel like the stakes are so high. I love so many books. Oh my gosh! Like, what are the essential ones? Gosh.
It could be your book too.
Well, of course. We all know that's what professors do. Is they well, I'd have to think about that. Like, what do I think is the most useful?
Or just even like like skills or kind of mindsets that people should like learn, or I feel like people skills. Like, I wish I was taught how to actually like interact with people at work and things like that, because that is something that no journalism school prepared me for. And you learn the hard way once you're like in it. But anyway, I was just curious, like, what you think people should be, what like teenagers should be thinking about as they embark in the world, along with good reading, like Benjamin Franklin.
Right.
Yeah.
What should they be thinking about? I think they should be thinking about relationships.
Yeah.
Right, because, you know, ancient philosophers and contemporary scientists agree that relationships are so key to happiness, and so I think that is a really key thing for them to be thinking about.
What's one of your, I know friendship is a big topic that you're interested in right now. What's one of your favorite friendship tips that you've been really excited about?
Well, this is very specific, but I do think it's interesting, which is that when you enter into a new social situation, especially one that's like very intense and new, and there's a lot of new people, so you think about it like a college freshman going to college, or you're going onto a cruise, or you're showing up at like a writer's conference or something like that. There is a tendency for people in the first 3 weeks to be unusually open to connection.
Yeah.
And like there's kind of an ease, and people, you can do things like sit down and introduce yourself and start talking to somebody, and it's not considered awkward, but the window closes. And that then people start to form groups, and they become more closed to relationships. And so it's like, if you're in a situation like that, you want to take advantage of it and like build your social network. As you want to think about making as many connections as you can during that period, because it's going to get much more difficult. And I think about many times in my life, I've been in situations where I really felt that, but I was interested to know that this is sort of a widely observed thing, and it's also limited in time. So I think that's a good.
I also, a tip I got from a friend was look for fellow transitioners in your life. So if you're going through a life transition, maybe like a divorce, a breakup, you're in a new city, you're at a new job, just look for other people that are also going through something similar, because they're the people who are also like, I would love to have a new friend. I would love to have this new connection. I feel like that's powerful.
I have a friend who went through a divorce, and it was a terrible divorce, but she is so zen about it. I'm always like, oh my gosh, you're like the most like healthy person. And and another friend of mine was getting divorced. She goes, and she doesn't even know her. She said, well, does she want me to be her divorce mentor? Because I've been a divorce mentor to a few people. And I was like, that sounds amazing. So again, it's like somebody going through the transition, or maybe who's a little ahead of you in the transition, and can give you kind of guidance.
My problem is that I want to become the matchmaker for those mentors, and I'm like, you just got divorced. My friend's getting divorced. And I'm like, maybe they don't actually want to talk to each other.
That sounds like a side gig.
I know. I should start charging for it. Yeah. Like, you're going through this very niche medical thing. I have a friend who's also going through that.
No, I mean, it's powerful. But that's the beauty of the internet. Like, people can find each other and like have these groups that can support each other. But it's really really good to do that. Yeah.
You also in the book talk a lot about so there's like big categories like we talked about, like procrastination, getting things done, relationships, but you also have a lot of fun, just like simple
At the end.
secrets of adulthood at the end that
Well,
I love.
this is funny because as I was writing, like I had this gigantic trove of aphorisms, so I was distilling them down to the best ones. And then I just couldn't resist. I love a hack. I just couldn't resist making this other little list as I was going of things that just didn't rise to the level of being a true secret of adulthood. And so I said to my editor, well, I have this, but I thought she would say, Gretchen, don't include those. Like, we got to, you're just like, this is a digression, whatever. And then she's like, oh, these are really fun. Let's just throw them in the back. And I think they are really fun.
They're great. I loved just kind of flipping through them. Like, don't buy things until you need them. Store them at the store.
Yes.
Great.
Yes. I have a friend who's an overbuyer. Yeah.
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 100%. I think everyone can relate to this. Every to-do list should have one item you can cross off your list in 5 minutes.
Yes. That's very important for morale.
Or listen, I'll be like, I did that yesterday.
Yes.
Easy.
Yeah. Well, you can do a to-do list, and you can also do a to-do list where you just write down everything you already done.
Oh,
That's
a
a to-do list. That can be very.
I smell merch.
Yeah. Oh, believe me, I have it.
Oh, yeah, there we go. Leave some room in the suitcase. That's good. I ran into that trouble the other day.
So I thought that I was not going to be able to observe this aphorism because I am doing a 10-day tour in 10 days. And I was like, that's going to take some next level packing in a carry-on bag. I thought I was going to fill every inch, but I do have a little bit
just
of room
a little space for like a magnet or something.
Yeah.
Another one I love is just like, you talk this about a lot on your podcast, is the 1 minute rule. You want to explain that?
This is just the idea that anything you can do in less than a minute, you do it without delay. So you hang up a coat, you print out a document and put it in the file, you go through your junk mail and put the stuff in the recycling. And this just gets rid of the scum of clutter on the surface of life. Because a lot of times we just feel weighed down by little tasks that themselves are not a big deal, but they just build up.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
If you don't know what to do with yourself, go outside or go to sleep.
Yeah. I remind myself of that often.
This actually, I'm realizing, gets more to my theory about we're overthinking self-help sometimes, which is just like, you got to change it up. You need to rest or get some fresh air.
Yeah.
That's just, it's as simple as that. The simple stuff works. That's the thing that I think people don't always want to realize.
Yes.
Is that in an age of self-help where so many people are trying to biohack themselves and going to real extremes and really risky things and trying to push that onto other people. The truth is, some of the best things we know about health are the simplest, everyday, accessible things. Yeah. But you can't monetize it, I guess. So
Going outside and walking for 20 minutes.
I know. It's just. It's good. Yeah. We're going to take your questions here in a minute. So if you want to start potentially lining up, if you have a question for Gretchen.
And you get a gold star if you ask the first question.
Yes.
Because people don't like to ask questions. But this is always my favorite part. So please ask.
As people start to line up, I just have one last question from myself, which is, I know all of these are equally your favorite. I'm not going to ask you which one's your favorite. But is there an aphorism right now, even just this season of life today, this hour, this moment, is really kind of like burning in your head right now, or really resonating for you these days?
The bird, the bat, and the bee all fly, but they use different wings.
She wrote that.
Yeah.
There's
so
so
much,
elegant.
Well, and people are so different. I constantly am amazed. People will just have a completely different perspective, a completely way of doing things, and that's fine.
Yeah.
And so.
Yeah, and alliteration is nice too there.
I was very happy when I got the alliteration. That's
all right.
the fluency bias.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. So before we go to questions, just some quick housekeeping here. We're hoping to get to as many questions of yours as we can. So if you're going to ask a question, and I have some virtual attendees, I have some of your questions here. So if you're going to share your question, do that rather than say a comment. Questions are easier to answer. Keep it brief if you can, and then we're going to just do one question per person. So with that, I saw you get to the mic milliseconds before this other person, so you get to go ahead. Hi.
Hi, I'm Wendy. I've seen you 3 times here.
Thank you.
So you talk a lot about choosing the bigger life.
Yes.
How do you decide what is going to be the bigger life?
Well, that is the part where only you can decide, because it could be different for different people. I remember talking to somebody where she was saying, my husband and I are trying to decide what to do. We're starting a family. We love living in the city, but we're thinking about moving back home because we have family there. And the pros and the cons are very easily balanced, are very equally balanced. And I said, and she was going on. And then I said, well, choose the bigger life. And instantly they were saying, well, the bigger life for us is to go back home. Now, but that's not what everybody would say. And so I think that the part of what is meant to be thought-provoking about it is that only the individual can decide what the bigger life is.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. But I love that framework. That's why we're getting a puppy. I really am kind of dreading getting a puppy because I'm like, it's going to be so much work. What are we getting ourselves into and everything? But I'm like, choose the bigger life. The bigger life is the puppy. Yeah.
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 Do you have a name for the puppy?
Taffy or Rosie?
Kathy?
Taffy.
Oh, Taffy.
Or Rosie.
I like Rosie. Anyway.
I know, I was hard Taffy, and then I just was like, no, I kind of like Rosie better.
It's a name you will say on repeat all the time, so you better like the name as someone who has a puppy or has had a puppy.
Yeah.
All right, you there in the white blazer.
Hi, I'm May. Thank you for coming to Washington, D.C. You can come to any city in the country, and so you come here very often, which is great.
Love coming here.
You famously lived here when you were younger, and you come here for a tour, so it's great. It feels like you really like our city, so this is awesome. What is your Winsteads of Washington?
Ooh, well, the thing that I love about Washington, D.C., especially this time of year, is just the blooming everything. Like the shrubbery, all of the, I mean, even apart from the cherry blossoms, it's just like, it's the most flowery city. I love it. What is the Winsteads of, can I say Kramer Books?
Yeah, Kramer Books is great.
Yeah.
I used to live right next to it and just go in just to browse.
Yeah, because I used to live right near there. I lived right on DuPont Circle, so we would go in there all the time. Yeah, that's probably my Winsteads.
Nice.
Thank you for knowing Winsteads. Yes, the Kansas City highlight.
I went to Winstead's because I was in Kansas City and
what
had
did
to.
And what did you think?
It was fantastic. It was exactly what I thought it would be.
Good.
Given your description, the way you, Liz, talk about it, it was exactly what I thought it would be.
Okay, good.
Everyone should go to Winstead's.
Yes, it's a diner in Kansas City, Missouri.
Oh, nice.
Yes. I was there for a conference. It was delightful. I'm Betsy. I thank you for giving me a name for upholder.
Oh, good.
That is what I am.
Welcome,
And
yes.
I am,
welcome.
Yes.
Yes. And I'm also a member of the online course that you are doing
great,
last
great,
year
great.
and this
Yeah.
year. Very fun. And I know you're in your open door moment and that your brain is very much swimming in that. And are there any of the aphorisms that are helping you navigate this new time in life? And what have you learned that might be useful for someone who doesn't have kids?
Right, so Open Door is how I am rebranding the empty nest phase.
I like that. Yeah. It needs a rebrand.
Yeah, so my next big project is going to be about the Open Door empty nest phase. I think what I'm thinking about for that is step into the future and also to cultivate an atmosphere of growth. Because one of the things I think that happens many times in our lives when children leave and also just generally over time is that sometimes we can feel a little sense of stagnation or even diminishment. Well, one thing about friends is people tend to shed friends over time, so you have to be very aware of that. So stepping into the future and cultivating an atmosphere of growth so that you're learning something or teaching something or fixing something or just having that sense of growth, I think, is really important. So I've been thinking a lot about that for myself, and I think that that's generally useful for everybody who might be facing that kind of challenge.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Please.
Hi, Gretchen. My name's Reka. Love the Happier podcast.
Oh, thank you.
One aphorism that you often mention on that podcast is action is the antidote to anxiety.
Yes.
And when I heard that, there was just so much clarity and it resonated so much with me.
Great.
I go back to that often. So I'm sure you've collected you've collected so many of these, and I'm sure you've had so many of these moments while you've been collecting them, but is there a particular aphorism that was really surprising in terms of how much of an impact it had on your overall well-being or happiness?
Oh, I think I know one.
Oh, what? What would you say?
Well, the one that kind of launched the Happiness Project, right? The days are long.
The days are long, but the years are short.
Yeah.
Yeah, yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes, that is one.
But I don't want to steal your thunder. Go
yeah.
ahead.
What's one that surprised me? Well, I'll tell you one that surprised me all the way back. So way back. So when I started the Happiness Project, and maybe you had this with your project too, I thought, well, I'll just find the best way. I'll just find the most efficient way. And then once I figure that out, I'll just tell everybody what to do, and then everybody will be great. Like, it's just a question of doing the right research and like distilling it all.
And testing and testing and yeah.
But you can't, because everybody's different. You have to come, and this was just such a surprise to me, and it continually surprises me how different people are. How they need to do it their own way, how they have a completely different way of understanding something that seems like almost like fact, like they just see the world differently. And the thing that surprised me was how to deal with people who would say, well, just tell me the best way.
Yeah.
Because people and I'd say, well, there is no best way because we're all different, blah, blah, blah. And they would be very unsatisfied with that answer. And then they would lean into me as if I had the secret. And they'd go, yeah. But really, what's the best way?
And here's a 20.
And yeah. And so I couldn't figure out what to do. So I guess the aphorism is that I would say, well, what's the best way to cook an egg? And they would say, very puzzled, well, it depends. It depends on how you like your eggs. And then some people would be like, I don't even like eggs. And I'm like, right. There's no one best way to cook an egg.
Right.
Because everybody's different. And there's no one best way to make happiness. And it was like, this was such a, like, it still, we are so shaped by our own mind.
Yeah.
It's constantly, I have to constantly remind myself, somebody else has a completely different experience of what is happening. In Life in 5 Senses, it was even literally like, what does the room smell like? People would have a very different response to that. Like, we just live in different worlds. And so that is something that's been very continually surprising to me.
Nice. Please.
Hi, I'm Lindsay. So my question's a little adjacent to Betsy's, but I know you dedicated the book to your daughters, and I know we're all super excited to read what's in here and take some really fantastic nuggets from it, but you are their mom.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
reading all of it and hearing this wonderful sage advice, is there anything that's resonated with them that they're like, gosh, my mom is a genius, or like, mom, you know? So what's been their reaction? Is there anything that really has resonated with them?
The very sweet thing that my older daughter Eliza did this morning, she said, my secret of adulthood is to have you on my team.
Aww. So, very sweet.
Yeah, very sweet. I think that they might feel slightly like innocent bystanders because they hear this stuff all the time,
Yeah.
you know, so they're like, oh yeah, like I know all that. Yeah, but yeah.
Well, I actually have a question from a virtual fan. Speaking of family, Laura from Maryland said, did your husband contribute to any ideas or inspiration for this book? If so, what were they?
Well, I will, and we recently talked about this on the Happier podcast, but one of the things is that if you were a professional, is that your spouse doesn't necessarily want to follow along everything that you do. And so my husband, like, he doesn't read anything I write and he doesn't listen to my podcast because he just gives him the heebie-jeebies, which I completely understand. And so he contributes to them in that he clarifies my mind, but no.
This is all you, baby.
Yeah, it's all me. Yeah. And
Nice.
he didn't read them or comment or anything. That's
There you
not
go.
his jam. Yeah.
All right.
He's a very loving person, but he's just like, he got off that train a long time ago.
Fair enough. Right here, please.
Hello. So my question is centered around this parenting idea as well. So getting to know you through your work over the years, you seem to strike a perfect balance, or, perfect, none of us, but accepting yourself and also stretching to be more. So as you've raised your daughters and are now both out of the house, how have you struck the balance between accepting them for who they are and that happiness bully side of yourself that you're like, yeah, but you need to? What would you say to that?
That's a great question.
You know, that is a really great question, and it's a great challenge for parents. And I mean, there's another aphorism in here that I think of a lot in that context, which is love is unconditional and love is demanding. Love accepts you just as you are, and love expects the best from you. And I think that's a really hard thing for children, which is you want to show that you love them, but then you also kind of want to see them reach their potential, right? So I think about that all the time. And one of the things I do as a parent, and I think there's a word for this, but I can't remember what it is. Maybe you know what it is that you try to give words to what you think their strengths are so that they are more aware of it. You want to point it out. Like, you're so resourceful, or you're so resilient, or you're so good at, to help them understand their own strengths better. But I really do try to hold myself back from except getting enough sleep. I do badger them about that constantly. But yeah, I mean, I really do try to. In my own mind, the way that I think of it is like nothing can stand between my daughters and the sunshine of my love. Like, I don't want any kind of judgment or anger or I wish you hadn't done that, So I have that visual in my mind of just like this sunshine on them.
Oh.
So yeah, but it's not easy. Yeah, I think for any parent.
Yeah.
But another one of my aphorisms is that easy children raise good parents. And I have to say, I have very easy children.
My mom's here tonight.
I have easy children.
I was easy.
Yeah. Well, upholders tend to be easier children. Yeah.
Hi, how are you?
Hi. So I was wondering, in your great pool of aphorisms that you've collected, I was wondering, do you think that there are certain cultures that sort of breed a lot of aphorisms, like people from, just speaking within the United States, like people from the South or people from the West Coast, or maybe it's people like Benjamin Franklin in like the, Mid-Atlantic, Northwest, or is it like the country Great Britain, or, have you found that there seems to be a lot of aphorisms that a culture kind of bubbles up and they reuse and populate?
That's such an interesting question. Yeah, like the classical literature has a lot from China, like thinking about like ancient, but then like, I don't know, I think it's kind of a universal human impulse. And it also is kind of like what's conveyed to us, what gets written down and what gets republished. So there's that element, that of it too. But then I think of proverbs, which is kind of like folk aphorisms, and I think it might be just a ubiquitous part of human nature to try to do this. And then, but I don't know, I want to think about that. That's an interesting question. I never considered that. I bet there's academic research about that. I'll have to poke around tonight. Okay.
This is another book in the wings.
Yeah, on a little internet. I never thought about that. Because with my own favorites, I just sort of have my own favorites that I've developed over the years.
I heard you
like Oscar Wilde.
Yeah. You were. I heard you. Was it on your show today? Even talking about how you will write in the work that you're working on. That's besides that your current project. What are the notebooks you called? Like your the
blank books or
no,
the hooky books.
I'm forgetting the name of it.
Commonplace books?
No, I'm sorry, I don't remember. You have it like basically like when you want to distract yourself from the writing you're doing currently. You write it in a different notebook.
No, that's a hooky book.
Hooky book. I was like, it has like a cute phrase.
No. A hooky book is when I'm playing hooky.
That's what I'm thinking of. Okay.
Yeah, I play hooky by working on a different book. So I played hooky from Life in 5 Senses by writing this book.
There we go. Yeah.
I played hooky from Better Than Before by writing Outer Order, Inner Calm. Now I'm playing hooky from Project Empty Nest, which is going to be my Empty Nest book, open door book. Maybe with a project that's about like all different kinds of pleasures, but I can't decide if it's a book or if it's just like a little side project. I've got projects. I still want to do something with my color pilgrimage. I was so preoccupied with color. This was a hooky book, but I've shown it to several people. Like, what should I do with this? I think it's really cool and interesting. It's all about color. And they're all like, well, you've really had fun with that.
Like, so it's time to move on, honey.
That thing may never see the light of day, but I look at it, I'm like, I think that's really interesting. But of course, it's all the points. It's everything I think is interesting.
I think that's
so I have these kind of hooky books
that
sometimes come to nothing.
I feel like there's an aphorism in there somewhere that I am not about to say, but that's not like fully written, but about how like, I know the journey is like kind of a icky word sometimes, but like there's something about like the side paths become the path or something like that. Yeah.
Right.
Like
No,
about
right,
life. Whether it's a creative project, it's writing, it's moving to a different city and then or
Right.
meeting a friend or something.
Right. Exactly. Yes.
All right. How about you?
Hi, I'm Nikki. I'm going to give a quick statement for your consideration, ma'am.
Okay.
And then I'm actually going to ask my question. But so I'm realizing as I'm waiting in this line that it's very intimidating to get up here and ask a question. But I'm an extrovert, so I do it anyway, okay? But I mention that because I realize there's probably a lot of introverts or people who are just a bit nervous who won't ask their question. So maybe there could be a method for those individuals to pass down a piece of paper so somebody else can ask it. So that's just food for thought, for consideration.
That's good. Thank you.
I don't
That's-
like giving problems without a solution.
No,
so-
that's great.
Okay.
Yes.
So my question is, I believe that I have suffered, as probably everyone has in this room at some point, I'm guessing because people are here because they want to improve their lives probably, from what's called an internal barrier. So for those of you who are not aware of what that is, that's essentially where it's a very deep-seated belief that you just aren't worthy or you can't achieve something or be something or complete something. So my question for you is, how do you overcome something like that? Number one, because it's so hard to even recognize. But number two, because it is so hard to overcome something that's so, deep-rooted. So do you have any advice on that?
It's kind of like imposter syndrome almost.
Yeah, very similar.
Yeah.
I almost mentioned that, but then I didn't want to
Are
complicate
you an
it.
obliger?
I'm a questioner,
Okay.
though I feel like I connect with all of them. Except
Well, that
for
is a
Rebel.
sign of being a questioner, because a questioner is like, well, if it makes sense to, if it makes sense to do it, I'll do it. If it doesn't make sense to do it, I don't do it. So why would I do it? I'm like, okay, that's questioner. Because often when people feel like there's like a psychological barrier, often it's that they need accountability. So I would think about trying to do the thing that you want to do, even if you don't feel equipped to do it, and just accept that maybe you just feel like an imposter.
So just keep doing it, because
Just
I
keep-
am.
yeah.
I am pursuing, but
Yeah.
in my mind, I'm like, can I really do this? You
If
know
you're
what I mean?
doing it, you're doing it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that doing it is the
doing it.
is the doing of it.
Yeah.
Just focus on.
Now,
I
there's
will-
your next one.
no, but
Doing
I-
it is doing it.
But I will say this: when I was thinking about when I was clerk, I was like, I had all these like law, arrows. What is it? Feathers in my cap, and I was thinking of, and I had this idea for my first book, Power, Money, Fame, Sex, and I was doing all this work, and I was thinking about trying to like get an agent and everything. And my sister, Elizabeth, I said, but the thing is, I worry that I'm not going to feel legitimate if I try this and like try to make this move. And she said, well, do you feel legitimate now?
Oh.
And I said,
That's good.
no. And she said, maybe that's just part of your nature. Maybe you just feel like you're just not legitimate. So just put it aside and move on. And I was like, that is great advice.
Yeah.
It's just like, okay, well, maybe that's just something that is just there and move on. And then it kind of went away. So I think by doing it is the way to tackle it. And you're doing it, so that's great.
Okay, thank you.
Sometimes too, I find when you look out and you see people doing something that you wish you were doing, and you're like, I think I could do that better than you. And I'm like, you're already doing it. What's to stop me, right? Like,
Right.
I could put my hat in the ring. Why not?
Right. Right.
I feel like that's my way to get over imposter syndrome.
Oh, that's a good way.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I mean, or like at NPR, for instance, we get a lot of galleys, which are like, early copies of books, and you get a lot of like not very good ones, right? And I'll be like, this person wrote a book, I can write a book. But this one I said, we got to talk about this at 6 to 9.
No, but there's an aphorism for that,
Oh,
which
let's
is
hear it.
that you can be good at something without being good at something.
Exactly.
Dolly
100%.
Parton, Paul McCartney, and I forget who my other example was. Can't read music.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter, yeah.
And there are all these great artists who can't draw. There are people who are in finance who aren't good at math. I mean, when I was young, I thought you had to be really, really good at everything to scale up.
Totally.
Not true. You don't have to be good at something to be good at something.
Completely.
All right. We have time for just the questions for those who are standing.
Absolutely.
Okay.
On it. Here we are.
Hi, I'm Magdalena. You shared with us an aphorism about easy children.
Yeah.
What words of advice do you have about difficult children?
Because Because they exist.
Yeah, they grow up. Yeah, this too will change. This
Yeah.
too, yes, that's
And
funny.
getting through the days.
Yeah,
and
the
those days.
days. The years for sure. Yes. One day all this will be, one day now will be long ago.
Yeah,
Yes.
exactly.
Hi, I'm just learning about these 4 categories.
Four tendencies, yeah.
Yeah, 4 tendencies. So I'm definitely a little bit of an upholder.
Okay.
And so I'm wondering, like, I tend to get like in a routine, and I'm like, okay, this is the formula. I'm like, I'm gonna wake up, I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna go to work, I'm gonna get home, I'm gonna go to the gym for this amount of hours, I'm gonna get to bed by this time, and you like.
You sure sound like an upholder.
Yes,
Yeah.
and you're like, and I'm gonna have this notebook at work, and everything
Yeah.
that I do at work, I'm gonna check
Yeah.
it off as I do it, and you're like, okay.
Okay.
So how do you know when like
It's too much.
enough is enough to like change up the routine, or
Okay.
like it's too much?
Okay. So it sounds like you may be experiencing tightening. So tightening is when the rules get tighter and tighter and tighter on an upholder. So like I remember talking to somebody in medical school, and she said, well, it used to be that I didn't review my notes before class. And then sometimes I would review my notes before class. And now I always review my notes before every class, even though I know that's not the best use of my time. I still can't let go of it. That's tightening. And so the way to do it is to go into your upholder mind and say, this is not helping me execute. I'm drowning in my own red tape, and I need to like recalibrate according to what is my inner expectation and what I want for myself. So you have to really go back into that inner expectation. But it's something, I mean, have you experienced it? I experienced it. It's something that really can happen to upholders. It can happen to upholder children too. You have to be very careful as an upholder, as a parent of an upholder, that you don't tip them into tightening, because they will do that very easily.
That's where I find the concept of free passes from Katie Milkman, a behavioral scientist at Wharton. She talks about, like, if you think, I'm going to go to the gym 5 days a week no matter what, well, life happens. You're probably not going to be able to do that. So be like, well, I have like a free pass, maybe 2 free passes, and then I still get to go to the gym or work out 3 days a week, which is great. So that's how I've had to work on my
planned
timing.
exceptions. Yeah, there are ways for upholders to manage that, because it can be overwhelming and draining, for sure.
Thank you.
Hi.
It's so exciting to be here. Thank you so much. My favorite episode or thing you talk about is when you say it's not as glamorous as it seems. And you're talking about this person, I think they're studying like for their like doctorate in like bugs, and they're at a party and they're like, so I study bugs all day.
It was the Scottish Enlightenment.
Oh, okay.
Yes,
I don't know why I thought it
remembering
was
that. Yeah, that was an episode of Little Half Year. Yes.
That I just thought was so cool, and just like
that's so
pointed
nice.
out that like not everyone thinks the same, and you can be really into something and there's no competition.
Yes.
But my question is, what is your favorite thing, or what do you love most or envy most or think is coolest about each tendency?
Ooh,
great question.
Okay, well, mine's upholder. So my favorite thing about upholders is that you can trust yourself. Like, I know that I can rely on myself more than I can rely on anybody else in the world, and that's a good feeling. So I like that about being an upholder. Questioners, I admire the way they just ask why. And my husband's a questioner, and I'll often think, well, what would Jamie say? And Jamie would say, like, why are you going to do that? And they're the ones that keep everybody from wasting our time, energy, or money, because they're so focused on, like, what are the reasons for things? And we should have reasons for things, because if we don't have reasons, why are we doing it? And so I think that's super valuable. Obliger, I mean, they just are the people that come through. They go the extra mile. They are the people that will do that. And it's so admirable. And obligers sometimes feel like they're taken advantage of, and 100% they are. Being all the other tendencies really do take advantage of obligers, because they're the salt of the earth. I so admire that. And then rebels, I think I've learned the most from rebels, since it's the most different from my own tendency. And what rebels have taught me is that we are way more free than we think. And there are things people say you have to do, and you don't have to do them. There are and I just realize, that there's a lot more freedom. And I think as an upholder, I sometimes see rules where no rules exist. I remember when I moved to New York City, I was incredibly stressed out anytime I had to hail a cab, because I envisioned that there were all these secret protocol things that people knew about. I was always like looking at other people. I'm like, well, do you have to be standing at a certain corner? like you have to be on the top corner, the bottom corner. Like I just was so stressed out about it, like thinking that there were all these rules.
Yeah.
And then you're like, you can just do what you want. And then people will deal with that.
And it's like a revelation.
It
As an upholder, you're like, oh, I can say no to that.
Yeah,
I don't have to do that.
Yeah, I don't have to do that.
That was an option?
I can just ignore that. Yeah. So, so I feel like that's been very, very illuminating for me to realize, like, a lot of times I had a lot more freedom than I thought. So, yeah, I feel like I've gained a lot from all the tendencies.
Freedom feels like a good place to close our conversation.
Yes, great.
Gretchen Rubin, congratulations on the book again.
Oh,
so lovely
Meghan,
to talk
thank
to
you so much. Like, you did such a great job. Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you to all of you all for coming. Gretchen's going to be signing books. And thank you to Six and I again for being...
Yes, thank you, Six and I.
What a wonderful space. Thank you for having us. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah, of course.
Thank you so much to Gretchen Rubin and Meghan Keane, and thank you all for joining us.